advocate is moving on to. If it's into a company that you don't have a relationship with, you would want to form one based on the person that loves your solution. The second that I'd like you to create is appointed leaders to hot prospects, hot accounts. Whether these are the named accounts you've been assigned, or these are a list of prospects that you want in the New England states, in the IT department is your buyer persona, and financial services is the industry you go after. And then the third is being opportunistic. Let's ignore the type of company that they're going in and out of. Let's just listen for changes in the IT department within the geographical regions that I'm interested in. So very quickly, I'll create a safe search to give you an example. So in advanced, I'm going to hit 3 degrees of separation here. And in companies, I'm doing a webinar right now with DiscoverOrg. Okay? Perhaps this is one of my named accounts that I've been tasked and assigned to monitor. DiscoverOrg or Oracle, or we talked about TIBCO, or whatever you'd like it to be. You could do this from an account management standpoint. You could do this from a sales rep standpoint. You could put in as many of these accounts as you'd like. Now, from the first one that we looked at, advocate marketing, what I'm interested in is past, not current. I'm interested in those that end up leaving my named accounts. Location, let's just put it anywhere for now. One of the great things about doing a safe search, start macro to micro. Do the search, make sure that it works. Now I can start refining by title. So perhaps I'm doing director or VP or CXO, which is a wild card, and they need to work in the IT department. So information, I wish I could spell, services, or information security. Okay, let's do that search again. Let's take that 500,000 and let's refine that down. Okay, but again, I want you to look at this as a balance sheet. This is not, and I want current. Okay, so people have to still retain a decision-making title. So what I care about are not the people that have already left IBM, but what I care about is saving this search and call it my advocate marketing list. Now this is the list of prospects that are leaving these companies. I want this on a daily basis. Now we could reverse that. That's for people leaving. We could do current, and those are people coming into my named accounts. We could ignore the companies, and we could just search by title and say, listen, I want to know all the directors, VPs, CXOs, but now I can start refining it down to various cities or geographical regions, even down by zip code or postal code. What that is now presenting me is a laundry list of opportunities. What happens is on those alerts on a daily basis or a weekly basis, and trust me, you'll create some great alerts where you may not even get an alert for 3 weeks. But when you do get that alert, that the chief revenue officer at company ABC or the IT director at another company leaves and goes on to another company, you want to know about it. It's the best way in the door is the changing of that guard. So this is tip number 1. Tip number 1 is keep abreast as to understanding who's going in and out of the accounts that you've been assigned, and also forget the named accounts. I just want to know the changing of a guard in the IT departments around the New England states as an example. I'll give you a real quick success story, and then I'm going to hand it over to Henry. Real success story, and this is an old one. I've told this story quite a few times, so the people at Cision are probably sick of hearing it. But long and the short, this is a concept of using these trigger events. This individual was using Cision, which is the largest PR and communications database and media monitoring tool on the planet. And they used it to monitor for the Vancouver Olympics. Well, that decision maker moved on. The Vancouver Olympics ended, moved on to the city of Kelowna, where they were using a competitor called Focus. And that competitor, she wasn't in a position to change the solution. Well, about a year later, they migrated, or she migrated on to a large trucking company called Cal Tire. But using these searches of advocate marketing, of understanding those that have enjoyed your services before, where have they moved on to, now the great sales professionals at Cision are able to jump on top of them before they start looking at other tools. They can get in there in the first 90 days and start developing a relationship by reaching out and saying, hey, hope you're doing well, enjoy your new role. Here's some content that might help you through that first 90 days, but I'm here as a resource. And that's how the best ways to get in the door. So I'm going to move this on to Henry. You could talk a little bit about how you're doing the exact same thing.
Great, thanks, Jamie. One of the things I should have said up front, and I didn't, but you will get a copy of this slide deck at the end of the webinar, as well as a recording of the webinar. And the big thing is Jamie and I are going to run through a bunch of different things here, but we're opening up at the end of, at about 10:25, 10:30, will allow you to ask some questions too. So if you're familiar with the GoToMeeting questions box, any questions that you have along the way, please ask them there, and we'll be able to relay them to myself or Jamie for at the end of the webinar. So questions, and you're going to get a recording and a copy. So if you're familiar with DiscoverOrg, you know that we're also running down real-time triggers. We have a team of in-house analysts, 80 of them, and their job is every single day to be calling into these 15,000 companies that we profile and gathering intelligence and data on them. So over here are our real-time triggers. I'm going to take you to a page that's specific for them. Like Jamie said in his example, I'm somebody who's focused on banking and financial services. I'm located in Boston. I can come in here and choose Massachusetts. And then I'm doing information security. So here in the category of real-time triggers, I'm also going to choose information security. There are two different types of triggers that we run down: leadership moves and projects and inside scoops. So for this one, I'm going to choose projects and inside scoops. Actually, let's just take a look at both of them. So I've limited these real-time triggers to Massachusetts, financial services and banking, and information security. And I can see what's going on at the companies in my territory. So I can see that first Marblehead is in the midst of implementing Cisco Identity Services Engine, and the VP of Infrastructure and Planning is involved in that project. Fidelity is currently seeking a director of IT risk. LPL Financial recently partitioned its data warehouse to update their security model. So here's a great opportunity for me to call LPL Financial if I'm in information security and say, hey, I'm the rep responsible for Boston and Financial Services Company. I see that you just redid your data warehouse security model. I wanted you to talk to you about how our case study client, other big financial services company, worked on an initiative similar to this and then use our services or whatever. Again, Boston Financial Services sources in IT have indicated that there are several networking and telecom infrastructure refreshes in progress. So I can save this real-time trigger alert, and I can subscribe to it, and I'll get email alerts in my inbox either daily or weekly based on what I choose here. So I can see these projects coming into my inbox every single day and be able to act on them. Let's say that I just wanted to look at leadership moves. I can come in here in category and I can choose executive moves and lateral moves and new hires. And then in type, I'm going to choose leadership moves, and I've got banking, financial services, and Massachusetts still selected. I'm going to search on those, and we'll give you a sense of some of the information you see here. Eastern Bank, Joe Catarali has recently left, and his responsibilities have been dispersed or absorbed. At Pioneer Investments, there's a new CIO. So if you've been stonewalled at that company for a while, you know now there's a new CIO, new opportunity, new VP of IT Risk and Compliance at State Street. Again, I could subscribe to these as well. One other use case, let's say you have a list of companies that you're focused on, your target account list. You can come right here into DiscoverOrg. You can put them right into the paste and go, match those against our database on company names. We'll go through, match that list of your target accounts directly against DiscoverOrg. Once you've done that, you have this list of companies. You can search against it. You have these search results, and one of the things that we also bring into the search results are both the LinkedIn profile link. So with one click, I can see Chuck on LinkedIn and go directly out to his profile. Then we also are bringing in their Twitter feeds too. So if you're really into the social thing here, you can see what Chuck is tweeting about. So he's obviously a big Boston guy. He's congratulating people on the Red Sox win. So if you're also in Boston, here's a nice way to find some rapport with him. But you can also get a sense for what he's tweeting on a regular basis. And that's all built into DiscoverOrg as well. So and you can also, once you run this search on your target accounts, you can subscribe to what we call red alerts. These will give you any updates and changes that happen to any of these target accounts. A new hire, a person who's left, a new phone number, a new title. We'll run that down in an email to you either daily or weekly as well, depending on how you choose there. So a lot of different ways to get these social trigger alerts out of DiscoverOrg as well. I'll pass it back over to you, Jamie.
I greatly appreciate it. And you said something that reminded me of the trigger event searches that I like to build. You called it stonewalling. And I think about some of the things that we teach. One of them is the inherent risk, and I run into sales professionals that are in this risk all the time. Whether it's a named account that they've been assigned and it's a prospect, or it's an actual account and it's a named account, but they're what's called single-threaded. They've got one relationship. That relationship leaves, or that relationship becomes difficult, and you're in deep doo-doo. The same sort of thing, what you just described as being stonewalled. You're working an account. That person, for whatever reason, is not interested in anything that you have to say. But by creating these alerts, you can begin to see that perhaps there are other champions in the organization that get promoted around that person. And a great social seller, Jill Rowley, calls it a socially surrounding. And all that means is you start developing a relationship with all the other people around the one that's been stonewalling you. Whether that's sharing content, you become a resource to to those other people who naturally start to influence the one in the middle, the one that's been the stonewaller, because you're sharing content and because you've been a resource. So, Henry, I thought that was fantastic. That's great. Another group of alerts, or another way of looking at LinkedIn as an example, as a form of a trigger event, is the changes of decision makers that you know in a first degree, whether these are hot prospects, but most importantly, this where you as a sales professional can work with your account management team, who is connected to all of your clients. It's the changes that they make. We have a training module called the Sphere of Influence, and the Sphere of Influence is very simple. If I have an advocate, if there is a person that could back up a success story that we have, by looking at their sphere of influence, basically everybody else that they know, those are the immediate people that would be interested in hearing from me based on, as an example, Tom's experience. So let's actually come to a profile, and I'll show you what I mean by this. So I'm going to look up an individual named Travis Burke. Okay, so Workforce Software is a client of ours. Great success story. Travis is the advocate. He's somebody that has truly enjoyed our services. I want you to click on that connections button. And what it shows me is every single person that Travis is connected to. I can see who I share connections with. I can also, and we'll talk about competitive intelligence, I can see who Travis connects to in real time. Everyone knew. Now, what this also becomes very valuable is I could begin doing searches, and I could say, well, I'm keen to see all the VPs of sales, but I could also have VPs of sales that maybe don't work at Workforce because they're already a client. And it starts to trim down Travis's 1,000 connections down to 54 VPs of sales. So if I want to start a relationship with Steve, would it not make sense to leverage my experience with workforce management and workforce software, and most importantly, Travis Burke, as a way of opening up a door here with Steve? So a very quick trigger, very quick, simple way of opening up a new door based on a relationship. And that's what those new connections are. Those new connections are also, again, your advocates are connecting with new people. Can your advocates help you get introduced to these new people that they, in fact, are connecting to? I'll give you a quick success story. This is Roy from Tata Communications, and Roy loved to leverage the power of the introduction. He used LinkedIn introductions, and he booked 10 meetings almost immediately within the first 30 or so days of leveraging LinkedIn introductions. But here's exactly who he went after. What he realized is when he started mapping out all the people that he worked with at Tata, which is a large organization, and again, I want you to pause and think about your own sales department. Let's ignore the sales department that you work in. What about the people in marketing, finance, operations? If you looked at your company as a whole, these people are friends with decision makers at other companies. They're next door neighbors to decision makers at other organizations. And so the first thing that Roy did is he realized I should be connected to not only the sales department within my own company, but everyone within my own company. And by doing that, it unlocked a host of opportunities. And so the first group of people that he went after was who at Tata is a first-degree connection to some of the named accounts that he's already going after. And ironically, there was a host of people in finance and operations and all kinds of different departments who could help him get into those companies. And number two, he then started looking at his own connections, at the people that he was connected to, and he focused in on those that had 500 plus connections or more, because he assumed that these people were connectors themselves and, of course, avid LinkedIn users who would take a moment to help him with that introduction. And so by looking at his own database of those that he was well connected to, that in fact were connectors themselves, he used them as a gateway of opening up new doors. I'll give you a quick example of this. I'll look up an individual that I do not know. So I'm looking up an individual named Brennan Cassidy who I am a second-degree connection to. But if I want to use an introduction, get introduced, I can then start looking at those people within my network that are best connected to Brendan. Well, Jill Rowley, as an example at Oracle, a client of ours, has 46 shared connections. And Jill Rowley, in fact, is the ultimate connector. So if I'm going to leverage somebody to open up a door with Brendan, Jill might be my best bet. So I'm going to use an opportunity to have Jill help me connect to Brendan. Okay? Number three, and there's one more after this, but number three is so powerful, and I was showing this to Henry. We had a pre-call before this meeting. What a lot of people don't realize about the LinkedIn mobile application is it bypasses a lot of the changes and challenges that people had in the removal of LinkedIn Signal in the summer. LinkedIn Signal was the ability to monitor everybody, any company you wanted. It was truly incredible. But the mobile application still has a lot of that horsepower. And what it allows you to do is, whether it's yourself looking up key accounts for connections or sales reps connected to other sales reps at your competitor, well, they're able to actually look up those sales reps on their LinkedIn profile on the mobile device and hit what's called recent activity. Recent activity will unlock all the people that they are connecting to in real time. I can track my competitors solely by looking at the recent activity of what they're doing through a mobile device. And if you're a savvy mobile user, you can take screenshots, you can share that. It's easy for you to remember who you need to follow up with. And then the last tool, this tool started using about a month ago, absolutely wicked horsepower. It's called oFunnel, and I use it for competitive intelligence. And let's pretend that this is my competitor, the devil. And this is my competitor. What I'm able to do in real time is oFunnel is doing all the homework for me. Instead of me going onto my LinkedIn mobile device or scrolling through LinkedIn profiles, it automatically is emailing me on a day-to-day basis. Anyone that I want that I'm connected to in a first degree, I can see who they're connecting to in real time. I can also track buyer persona. I could track, for Henry, it would be VPs of information technology. For myself, VPs of sales. I could see people in my own network connecting to those buyer personas, and it's giving me an alert in real time. And again, I can look at this report and say, wow, I didn't know one of my good friends just connected with the VP of sales over at company ABC, I'm going to leverage my good friend to help me get in that door. So check out OFunnel, fantastic tool, definitely a tool you'll want to use for competitive intelligence. Henry, any quick questions? Do you want to dive into the question and answer?
Yeah, let's dive into the question and answer. So if you guys have questions, please feel free to ask them in the questions box. Or what I'll also open up here is, if you have a question, want to ask it, go ahead and raise your hand, and I'll go ahead and call on you and unmute your line. But if you have questions, use the questions box, or ask us in the by raising your hand, and I'll call on you. Any questions about how to set up those alerts in LinkedIn, how to dive into checking out who your competitors are looking at, Jamie or I would be happy to answer them for you.
Yeah.
So one question we got here, Jamie, is how do you use Twitter to get alerts as well?
Okay. So let me come to. No, that's not where I want to go. Not photos of my son. So there are a few tools that you can use. Tool number one is a very popular one, and that is Hootsuite. Hootsuite is a fantastic way of monitoring everything, anything, anyone, any word. It's happening right here in Hootsuite. But many people find sometimes, from a sales professional standpoint, this can be a little intimidating and inundating. So there are other tools that you could end up using, like Twilert. Okay? Twilert is a tool that I used for quite some time, and it allows you to put those keywords in a search, and that will be emailed to you. So if in fact you find that this is a little bit much for you, then you can have that same information emailed to you on a daily basis, and I was using the free account that would allow me 100 tweets. So I'm looking up the word social selling. It would show me the last 100 things that were said on social selling. But I could obviously refine that down to companies in Boston, very specific information. But check out Twilert if you want that search alert.
Great. Next question is, how often do you get a response to an introduction request through LinkedIn?
How often do I get a response? Interesting. So I'll be honest, I don't use the introduction function as often as I could. I'll tell you a statistic from Barbara Giamanco, who's a social selling expert. In her opinion, if you were to send 20 introduction requests, about 50% of your network would take the time to actually submit that going forward. So now you're down to 10. Of the 10, you would probably have half of that respond in some sort of manner, whether it's definitely want to meet, or maybe call me in 3 weeks, or thanks for the information, but this doesn't make sense to us at this time. But it will most likely translate into at least a couple meetings. So the return on investment from a time standpoint is still fantastic. Now for me, and part of, as an avid user of LinkedIn, I know other secrets of being able to develop relationships with people who are in fact second and third degree connections based on sharing common groups. I don't necessarily use the introduction function because I go right to the horse's mouth. If I want to start a relationship with Brandon, I'll go directly to Brandon, and many times I bypass that person like Jill Rowley, unless I really do believe that Jill is going to add so much clout and horsepower in that introduction that will almost guarantee the security of that meeting. So depending on the importance of that meeting, if it's a really large account, a big prospect, and I know Jill Rowley's support would mean all the difference between getting and not getting this meeting, then I would use it. Otherwise, I'd just go right to the source.
All right, Mark Jones raised his hand. So Mark, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you if you're still there, Mark. Mark, you're unmuted now. Hey, Mark, are you with us? Mark? All right, Mark's not there. We're going to go to Mike Willard. Mike Willard, if you're with us, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you now. Oh, and Mike, I can't either. Mike, you're going to have to enter your PIN in order for me to unmute you. Christine asked, can you go over one more time how you filter connections not at the company through LinkedIn?
Filter connections not at the company. So just want to clarify that. Filter a person that I know's connection. So when I was on Travis's profile.
Yes.
Is that what we were talking about? Okay, yeah. So if I am on Travis's profile, anyone that you share a connection, a first-degree connection with, you may in fact see this. Now, there is a way of hiding those connections, but for the most part, most users have this open. And as they have it open, I'm able to see all of the connections. I'm able to see all the connections that we share together. I'm able to see the newest connections that Travis is making. And then I can begin that search. And this works exactly like an advanced search. So I could put VP of Sales or Director Sales. Okay. Hit that search. And as you recall, the last time I did that search just on VPs of Sales, it came up with 50. Now it comes up with 158 because, in fact, I'm refining both on Directors of Sales and on VPs of Sales. And now I can start to see all of those connections. And, of course, I could scroll through that information. I hope that answered the question.
I think so. Yeah. Got a couple questions on DiscoverOrg I'll take really quick. Jamie.
You want me to present?
No, I don't. No, I'm just going to answer them. Jim asked, what's the cost and pricing structure for DiscoverOrg? Jim, there's a bunch of different pricing structures. I'll have somebody here reach out to you to go over those in detail. And one question from Gilberto, does DiscoverOrg have sales intelligence on SMBs or just Fortune companies? Yep, we have data on almost 10,000 SMB companies as well as the large Fortune-ranked companies on there too. Got a question here. Do you recommend using Google News alerts for triggers at companies as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Google News Alerts is free and brain dead simple to set up, and it's combing videos, infographics, any press releases and news. Absolutely, as part of your trigger event wheelhouse, we'll call it, Google Alerts must be part of it because we're all avid Google users. We know that the whole planet is as well, and it's free. So set up a Gmail account and create Google Alerts.
Any other questions here? If not, I think we're going to wrap it up. All right. Actually, there's a question about if DiscoverOrg integrates with Salesforce.com. Susan, yes, it does. Jamie, is there a way to get the information you find in LinkedIn into Salesforce as well?
There is. Now, this is a beta tool that I'm just checking out right now. Let's pull up your profile, Henry. And I was showing you this before. There's a tool that I'm checking out right now called Equire. And Equire allows me to take not only the notes, but Henry's information. By clicking this, it will automatically sweep his information. And I can alter all this, right? If I don't want it to go into contacts, but I want it to go into leads. All of this, I'm allowed to alter this information and automatically submit it to Salesforce. It is alleviating a huge headache that people are having by seeing LinkedIn as its own separate database and then Salesforce as its own separate database. Now you can connect the two.
Oh, this easy one here. How do I find my saved searches in LinkedIn?
Yeah, so your saved searches in LinkedIn can be found in a couple of places. One, you could hit Advanced, and it just says Save Searches right here at the top, and it will be right here. And so I can come in here and look at my social selling list and all the social selling experts, right here. And of course, doing that exact same thing coming into Save Search, I could see who's new to that particular list, which is Vito.
All right, time for one more. I'm going to go ahead and try to unmute Mike Willard again here. Hey, Mike. Mike, are you there? Sounds like he's there, but he's working a power tool of some sort.
Running a vacuum.
All right, so that takes us to time here. Thanks, everybody, for joining. We will be sending you a copy of the presentation and the recording. Jamie, will you throw up your contact information again on your screen?
Yeah, I highly recommend anybody on this call follow me on Twitter and connect with me on LinkedIn. That's James T. Shanks. My name's Jamie Shanks. I can't spell my own name, but make sure that you connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to help.
Great. Thanks a lot for joining us today, Jamie. We're going to keep up the contact information for just a minute here in case you want to write it down and connect with us. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. Look for an email from us for follow-up. Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks.